The Tigers are shut out in San Diego, and we also have some updates on some key injuries. We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube or YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome in, welcome all. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope everyone had a fantastic holiday weekend, enjoyed their Labor Day. I'm recording, of course, the night of Labor Day after the Detroit Tigers lose 3-0 to the San Diego Padres in San Diego. Very appreciative that this game, despite being in San Diego, was still a day game for California. So it was like a normal start time for us. And, you know, the next two games in the series will be late nights. But this one got over with a little bit earlier in the day. The Tigers are now 70-69 on the season, still one game over 500. This is a pretty frustrating loss. I think it's frustrating for a multitude of reasons. One, just anytime you get shut out is inherently frustrating because it's impossible to win, right? So you're just watching. And I also think there's a difference between, you know, getting no hit or perfect gamed or not even, you know, that dramatic. You know, the pitcher goes out there and tosses a 1 or a 2 or a 3 hitter. Like, that's a lot different than a game like this in which the Tigers had base runners. They had 8 base runners in 9 innings and they had 6 hits. The Padres had ended with 8 hits, but most of those came in their final inning of work. The Tigers were out hitting the Padres going into the bottom of the 8th inning. And of course, it was only a 1-0 game then. So believe it or not, usually base runners can be correlated to run production, but just really frustrating because the Tigers yet again couldn't come through in clutch situations. Really struggled with runners in scoring position. Really struggled to get that big hit that for most of August we were so accustomed to them finding a way to get. And that's now 2 games like this in the last week where it's just been, man, like you're leaving ducks on the pond, which is always frustrating, but you're getting runners on base. You're consistently applying pressure. Joe Musgrove was great in this ball game, right? Obviously, he was fantastic. I'm not trying to take anything away from him whatsoever. Great execution of his game plan. Curveball worked great, etc. But like the efficiency wasn't fantastic. The Tigers were working a lot of counts, right? Drew a couple of walks, got runners on base, just couldn't string anything together. And that is a side effect, I would say, of having such a young lineup. That is going to happen every once in a while and probably more frequently than in a lineup that's full of, you know, veterans. So just part of the learning experience, part of the development, and part of the growing pains that is going to be the rest of this season, most likely. But this one loss also doesn't just completely derail all the excitement surrounding September, right? I'm recording this before the final in some of the games from the teams above the Detroit Tigers in the standings. It's a long shot as is. It's always been a long shot, but this one loss doesn't, you know, if they go out and win the next 2, that's still a series win in San Diego. That's a huge deal. Everybody's happy again. So one frustrating loss, put it behind you. Enjoy the day off on Tuesday. Go out there and try to take games 2 and 3. What went wrong specifically in this ball game? Well, you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. It's hard to win when you score 0 runs. It's really difficult. Yeah, honestly, when talking about specific pitches that the Tigers as a team struggled with, nobody was hitting Joe Musgrove's curveball. Not a soul. He goes 6 innings, 3 hits, no earned runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. Obviously, again, a fantastic day at the office for him. Lowers his ERA a decent amount, now at 4.09 on the season going into this game. It was around 4.20, 4.25, I want to say. So good outing for him, but that curveball specifically was something fierce. And the thing that I think was so impressive, I guess is the word I'll say about it, is that he has no fear throwing that pitch in no matter the count and no matter the handedness of the batter. A lot of times with righties, you'll see them only throw the curveballs to righties and kind of avoid it to lefties. No, he was throwing the curveball to everybody and also throwing it in the zone to everybody, like intentionally throwing it in the zone to everybody. Going backdoor curveball low and away to a lefty is risky business as a right-handed pitcher. That is super, super risky, right? If that ball even gets a little bit too much of the plate, it's getting absolutely destroyed. A la Torkelson against Rich Hill, opposite platoon, obviously, right? So wanted to give a tip of the cap to him. And yeah, just nobody on the team could hit the curveball, which was really frustrating because in an era in which there's so much velocity and you see players get, 98, 100 blown by them, seeing a big loopy curveball like that tie him up. There's something beautiful about that. Obviously, not when it happens against the Tigers, though, unfortunately. The bottom half of the lineup, I think, was really kind of the biggest Achilles heel of the Detroit Tigers in this ball game. We'll talk about the middle of the lineup actually got on base pretty frequently. But when you look at Colt Keith through Jake Rogers, that is your 5 through 9 hitters, over half of your lineup, right? They got on base twice, 2 hits. Colt Keith had 1 hit in the 9th inning, and Trey Sweeney had a hit earlier in the game that didn't amount to anything. Colt Keith, 1 for 4, 2 strikeouts, has been struggling lately. This is about a week now where he has not looked the same as he looked prior. You have Spencer Torkelson, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts and a double play in the 9th inning with nobody out that effectively ended the ball game. Didn't literally end the ball game, though. Obviously, then Jace Young comes up and does literally end the ball game. He goes 0 for 4 with a strikeout, is now hitting 192 with a 519 OPS. Just has not got the timing down. I think there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made in his mechanics. I'm going to continue preaching that. He has very unique mechanics, and I think that there's still a lot of work to be done there. Trey Sweeney, 1 for 3. We talked about him a lot recently, too. Hitting 190 with a 519 OPS, the same OPS as Jace Young. And then Jake Rogers hitting 192 with a 612 OPS. I mean, that bottom 5 is just brutal right now. And even if you want to remove Colt Keith from that conversation, okay, then your bottom 4. And even if you want to remove Colt Keith and Spencer Torkelson from that conversation, then your bottom 3. And there's really no removing anybody from that trio of Young, Sweeney, and Jake Rogers. So just a really frustrating offensive performance. 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position as a team with 7 runners left on base. Torkelson, Rogers, Justin Henry Malloy, pinch hitting late. Colt Keith all came up in big moments at one point in the ball game and did not come through, which is, again, as I have reiterated about a million times now, very frustrating. There was one inning specifically where the Tigers had first and second no outs and not only didn't score a runner, clearly, I don't even think they got the guy on second to third base. I'm pretty sure that was it was 3 consecutive outs, bang, 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 didn't even advance a runner on an out, a ground ball the opposite way. Just a really, really, really unfortunate lack of situational hitting last night, as you're listening to this. Let's talk about what went right, though. This was a really close ball game for 7 innings. I mean, really, it's only a 3-run game as a whole. So really, you could kind of argue the entire game, but it was a 1-run game going into the bottom of the 8th. Very close ball game, really effective pitching from Detroit. Again, let's talk about that right after this. Got to talk to you today about our friends over at GameTime. GameTime is the best in the business. And they have a new feature called GameTime Picks that lets getting tickets for your favorite live events easier and better. GameTime Picks filters out all the fluff to show you the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It is so clutch. It's so nice. And yeah, I will pretty much exclusively use GameTime at this point. All the events that are happening downtown. If it needs tickets, odds are pretty good. You can get tickets at GameTime. Sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc., and a lot of great features. All in pricing. It's a must have. It is so awesome because it just gives you the total up front, no hidden fees as you check out. You know how much you're paying as soon as you click on the tickets. And then obviously they have the Game Time guarantee and Game Time's great ticket coverage where your purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow with an off-day episode. Weird series where you have Game 1 off day and then Game 2 and 3. So we got a fun episode planned out. You know, every September since I've taken over this show, we've done a look at the next year. While this season is still going on, I think that's an important exercise to kind of give perspective to what I'm looking for the rest of this season. And it's always just a fun conversation, who stays, who goes, etc. So that's what's planned currently. But if something changes, it's because some big news happened. After you make us your first listen, make Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan your second listen. Sully is great humor, great knowledge, and getting you prepped for the postseason over at Locked On MLB. Again, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's talk about what went right in this 3-0 loss. Obviously not too much offensively. However, there was a little bit offensively that went well. Matt Vierling goes 2 for 4, had a big hit at the time. Obviously, it didn't ultimately matter, but at the time, pretty big knock in this game as well. Continues to just produce at a pretty solid level, right? Like he's not tearing the cover off the ball. He's not, like one of the better hitters in like the American League or anything. He's not setting the world on fire, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But he's been available. He's played, which is something that the Tigers' 2 or 3 best actual hitters cannot say throughout the season. And he leads the team in most statistical categories offensively because of that. And he deserves a ton of credit. His OPS is over league average. He's been an above league average hitter so far this season. And that approach of, if you throw me a fastball, I'm going to slap it the opposite way. And if you throw me a breaking ball low and inside, I'm going to hit a home run, has ended up working out pretty well. And I think that he's carved out a role for himself on this team going forward, probably in that like super utility, not going to be an everyday starter, but will play 120 to 140 games type of thing. For a like really deep, playoff caliber team, I think that that's probably more in line with what his role would be, but hits in the middle of the lineup on these Detroit Tigers. That offense has been a huge question mark, obviously, not only all this year, but for the last several years. But just wanted to give him some credit there. Had a good ball game in a game in which not too many players on the Tigers offense did have very good ball games. The middle of the lineup, really in general, I think was solid. You had Riley Greene, Matt Vierling, Kerry Carpenter. All 3 of those gentlemen got on base at least twice. I think all of them actually got on base exactly twice. With Riley Greene and Kerry Carpenter getting a hit and a walk, and then Vierling, who we already talked about, with 2 hits. And then, like Riley Greene's hit late, it was awesome. That was off of a lefty. Goodness, I can't talk. And I thought that was a really impressive AB. And then Kerry Carpenter's walk as well was a really impressive at bat. Man, 286, 938 OPS for Kerry Carpenter. Absolutely phenomenal. But the biggest story about what went right in this game was the pitching. Yet again, you have Tyler Holton, who opens this game. Solid 1-inning shutout ball. Then you have Hannafy, who is nasty. Like that, his stuff is legitimately good. That sweeper he has is really good. 2 strikeouts in 1 inning, has a 1.53 ERA now. Unfortunately, he also committed a brutal error. Torkelson couldn't get over there quick enough. Hannafy should not have even thrown that baseball. Gets airmailed, and it eventually does cost the Tigers a run. Now the Tigers couldn't score, so it ended up not being like the reason they lost, quote unquote. But brutal. just eat that. Keep the runner at first base. Go after the next hitter, and we're probably not looking at being down 1-0 at the end of that inning. But I really like his stuff, is the point I'm trying to drive home. I really like Hannafy's stuff, and I think that there is probably a role on this team for him next year. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I think that he's a guy that could play himself into that conversation a lot easier than I think some people realize. Ty Madden was the bulk reliever in this game that obviously had not only one opener, but kind of 2. Also, Tyler Holton pitched 2 innings. I feel like I only said 1. He goes 2 innings of shutout ball. So those 2 combined go for the first 3, and then Ty Madden goes 4 innings, 2 earned runs. Obviously, those runs coming in his final inning of work, in which he was eventually pulled and Foley replaced him on the mound. The last inning was rough. I kind of got away from him a little bit, but the rest I was thoroughly impressed. And my biggest takeaway from this outing was wow on the splitter. I was blown away by how good that splitter was in this ball game. He had one really impressive use of it specifically. I think it was his 1 strikeout was on the splitter low and away, got him to chase. It was really nice. It moved a lot. And I know that in the minors, he has gone from, change-up grip and then like splitter grip, and he's been throwing the splitter a lot this year, but, earlier in his professional career, it was more of a change-up. Kind of gone back and forth on what that pitch is a lot. I don't care what you called it. It was really nasty in this ball game, and I think that that's a great sign because he is somebody whose fastball is my biggest question mark in regards to Ty Madden. And so having a really good splitter, changeup, whatever we're going to label it as, helps a fastball become more valuable because they have to respect that good off speed. And it looks like a fastball until the bottom falls off of it. So I think that can only help him. Huge revelation here. Having a really nasty pitch can only help you. I know this is the hard-hitting analysis you come here for, but I really was impressed by it. It's the most impressed I've been by that pitch since he got called up, and I'm hoping we see it more. I'm hoping he throws it more, and I'm hoping that it does inevitably help his fastball as well. Jason Foley does what Jason Foley does. He gets ground balls, and he got a lot in this 1 inning of work that he ended up pitching for. No earned runs to his tally, but did allow some inherited runs. And yeah, I mean, you brought him in the game to get some ground balls. Great heads up play by Jace Young there in the 8th inning to go home, get the runner, and not allow this game to be a 4-run game going into the 9th inning for the Tigers. Again, didn't end up mattering, but still a heads up, good play, good tag as well by Jake Rogers. So solid defense all around there. But yeah, I mean, he got a lot of ground balls, and the ground balls, when you don't get strikeouts and you have runners on base, odds are pretty decent. At least one of those runners is scoring. And that's the giveth and taketh that comes with the Jason Foley's makeup and the type of reliever that he is. So I think that's pretty much it for what went right and what went wrong. Again, like I really thought Riley Greene's AB there in the 9th inning was super. 8th inning, the hit he had, the double, was super impressive. That is an unbelievably talented. Tanner Scott is one of the best lefties in baseball. He is disgusting. He has velocity. He has a wipeout sweeper. It's really tough to hit, especially as a lefty. And Riley Greene battling and then crushing and turning on that ball and getting on second base with a really, really impressive AB. And then I thought Kerry Carpenter all game, except for the first pitch he saw. That was the only time I was frustrated by Kerry Carpenter. The only, if there was one thing to nitpick with Carp's approach offensively, and this is super couch quarterback, I understand that because, again, he's been incredible this year, okay, is that he does chase high fastballs quite a lot. And in this ball game, he started off by chasing a high fastball, adjusted, right? Adjusted. And usually he does make a lot of really good in-game adjustments, and that's all great. But that is something that he needs to work on before he just gets super exposed, and that's kind of all pitchers throw him. So, and we've already seen an uptick in him getting those types of pitches over the last couple of weeks. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, not gonna knock the guy with an OPS over 900. Certainly has been a huge reason for the Tigers' success here and catapulting themselves back into kind of the wild card race, if you will. Okay, let's talk stuff. Don't have too much to talk about in stuff, but do have a little bit of stuff to talk about. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is the best. They are America's #1 sports book, and you have heard us talk about FanDuel quite often on this show over the years. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook today. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So let's talk stuff. Okay, don't have too much to cover in today's iteration of stuff, but a little bit. So the pinch hitting conversation, I think, is probably an interesting one that needs to be had in this ball game. I really don't mind anytime Andy Ibanez comes in to face a lefty. I don't really care who's up. I understand there's some people that want to see Kerry Carpenter all the time. We'll get to him in a second. Parker Meadows has been swinging really well lately. I understand the frustration for pulling Parker Meadows in that situation. But again, that is one of the premier lefty relievers in the sport. And Andy Ibanez it has like an 1,000 OPS against lefties on the season. You have to put him in the lineup at some point. You're not going to pull Greene, and Matt Vierling's a righty. So the only guaranteed way to get Andy Ibanez into the ball game and face a lefty is to have him pitch hit for Parker Meadows. So I really did not mind that decision, even though, again, it ultimately did not work out in the Tigers' favor. The Carpenter or the Malloy for Carpenter decision, I think, is a lot more justifiable to get a little bit upset over. Not that, again, if Kerry Carpenter was up there, it necessarily would have changed the outcome of the game, right? But I do think that Carpenter is at a point now where there's not too many situations I don't want him in the batter's box. And his splits are much better against righties than lefties. I want that to be clear. This is not a guy who has the same numbers against righties and lefties, right? Like he is substantially better against righties, and his lefty numbers still need to improve a lot. That's a huge thing we'll talk about this offseason. If he wants to take another step forward in his career, he needs to get better against lefties. But Malloy is a guy that you sent down to Toledo, right? And his numbers against lefties were really good. I understand the pure numbers side of it, but that was just a situation where I would have been okay if Carpenter got that AB there. Now, again, I'm really getting super nitpicky here. At the end of the day, those two decisions did not cost the team the game. They didn't score runs because of those decisions, but that did not cost them the ball game in any way, shape, or form. The team just has a long ways to go offensively still, and that's just where we're at. Wincio Perez started his rehab assignment down in AAA Toledo. That's fantastic news. So it sounds like he will be back before the season ends, and that's great news because when he initially went down, the initial report was he's done for the year. And so for him to be in a position where even if he only plays the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, that is a huge boost for this team. He was one of the team's better hitters in that, dry spell offensively in late May and all of June where the Tigers struggled a lot and everybody was hurt and they were begging for anybody to come through offensively. Wenceel Perez was that guy. So if he can come back, you can kind of end the season on a high note, be nearly 100% healthy. Believe it or not, we've come a long way from where the team was in June and July there as far as injuries go. And again, the youth movement, et cetera, and kind of try to end the year on a high note, no matter what happens in the wild card race. I know some people are still really clinging on to that, as you should. Fun times. And again, I'm not even sure if we're going to lose a game because of this. So go out, win the next two. You have an off day on Tuesday today as you're listening to this. The pitching matchups for the game 2 and 3 of this series: Cater Montero against TBD for the Padres, and then Casey Mize against TBD for the Padres. So no clue who's pitching for San Diego, but Montero and Mize will pitch games 2 and 3 for the Tigers, and those will be West Coast late night ball games. I believe both are 9:40 on Wednesday and 8:40 on Thursday. Like I said, tomorrow's show will be looking at the 2025 Detroit Tigers and what the Tigers could look like next season. I said this at the beginning of the show, but I'll reiterate. Always like doing this. Is like a yearly tradition now. We take one episode every September when this season is still going on and talk about the next season. Take one off day in September and do that. I've done that, I think, every year I've been on the show. So that'll be a fun episode for tomorrow. Okay. And then game 1 of the Padres, that's an iffy one. I got some family stuff going on that evening, so we'll see what happens there. We'll see. I'm going to try my best to still make it happen. Either way, I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch you all then, baby. Go Tigers.